Welcome back to the channel, my friends at Entrepreneur Sales. Hey, listen, this channel is dedicated to the study of sales, leadership, psychology, communication, and business. Every lesson is built from first principles because understanding why something works always going to outperform memorizing what to say. So today we're going to go deep into a skill that most salespeople dramatically oversimplify, okay? How do I read body language during a sales conversation? I don't mean crossed arms, mean they're defensive. Looking away means they're lying. Looking forward means they're interesting. The amateur level body language that you've all have learned, okay? You have to realize that human behavior isn't that simple. A single movement rarely tells you exactly what somebody is thinking. What matters is change. What was the baseline? What changed? When did it change? What else changed with it? What happened immediately before the change? And can you verify what you observed without making an assumption? The framework we're going to use today is baseline, deviation, cluster, context, and verification. And if you can master those 5 things, you'll start noticing information in sales conversations that most people completely miss. Why? Too dumb, too lazy, not disciplined enough, not willing to spend the time to learn so that they can achieve at the highest level. And that's why you're here today, right? So you can win and dominate in your field. Well, obviously understanding body language, would help, wouldn't you agree? Even if you're over the phone, I can tell if someone's locked in or not, right? Because I'm trained, because I'm skilled, because I spent the time learning. And obviously, you got to do some catching up, and that's why you're watching these videos. So let me teach you how to do this, right? You want to increase your revenue, I got to be able to read people. Okay, I can tell if someone's laying down when I'm talking to them over the phone. Well, you got to figure that out. How do we do that? Module 1, write this down. Establish the baseline. So, before you can identify unusual behavior, you need to understand what normal behavior looks like for that individual, right? And this is called establishing a baseline. During the first few minutes of the conversation, just observe them when you're discussing relatively neutral subjects, right? How animated are they naturally? How much eye contact do they normally make? How quickly do they respond? Do they talk with their hands? How expressive is their face? How much do they move? What's their normal speaking pace? How long are their answers? Are they naturally relaxed or naturally rigid? People are different. One prospect might naturally sit back with their arm crossed, for the entire conversation. I see these people. I talk to them all the time, right? Another might constantly move around. Another might barely make eye contact. And look, those behaviors don't tell you much, okay? And what becomes interesting is when the behavior changes from that person's baseline, okay? If someone has been highly animated for 20 minutes, suddenly becomes completely still when you discuss price, dude, you got to pay attention. You got to say, hey, that's a different change in the body cue, right? If someone has maintained strong visual engagement and suddenly starts looking away when you ask them about their current provider, pay attention. You're not interpreting the behavior yet. You're detecting a deviation. So that's step 1, right? Now, let's go down. Let's sit at module 2 here, okay? And module 2, read changes, not poses. And this is one of the biggest upgrades that you can make. Stop asking, what does that gesture mean? And start asking, hey, what changed, right? Suppose your prospect has been sitting back comfortably throughout the conversation. You ask, how satisfied are you with the financial information you're getting right now? Suddenly they lean forward, right? Their eyebrows move. Their speaking pace changes. And they say, well, that's actually a problem. Well, that's meaningful, not because leaning forward universally means something. It's meaningful because their behavior changed at a specific moment in the conversation. Think of a darn graph. Boom, 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 right? You aren't necessarily looking for the absolute number. You're looking for the movement. And behavioral deviation tells you something just changed internally. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be like an automatic thing indicator to you that to tell you what changed. That's where weak salespeople get themselves in trouble. Like, oh, he moved up, something happened. No, it does not automatically tell you what changed. Okay. So module 3, never read one signal in isolation. Write that down. Never read one weak signal in isolation. Okay. Hey, one behavior signals, that's nothing, right? I sit up, I move, I'm talking, I'm doing things, right? Multiple changes occurring together. That's what's more interesting. And this is called reading clusters. So write that down. Imagine you mention your fee, right? The prospect, here's what they do. They stop moving, they compress their lips, like they look away, they take a deeper breath, they pause longer than normal, and then says, okay, now we have a cluster. Something happened, but notice what I'm not saying. I'm not saying they think this is too expensive. I don't know that yet. Maybe they expected it was it was to cost twice as much. Maybe they're calculating something else. Maybe they're comparing it to something, another quote, another proposal that they received. Maybe they're thinking about their spouse. Maybe they're suddenly remembering another expense. The cluster tells you we got something to investigate. So I've got to put on my Inspector Gadget hat on, right? Or whatever his name is, and get in there and investigate. Okay? And it does not give you the permission to mind read. What are you? You're not mental. You don't know mental telepathy. I mean, what are you doing? You can't assume in sales. Cat-like curiosity. Now notice you sat up, you moved around, your lips quivered a little bit. What's going on over there? What are you thinking, big money? What are you thinking, big dog? Talk to me. Right? Module 4. Watch for congruency. Okay? Now we're getting deeper. Congruency means, do the different channels of communication agree with one another? Got the words, the tone, the facial expressions, the posture, the timing, the energy. So imagine you ask, how are you feeling about everything we discussed? And they say, great, sounds really good, but their voice gets quieter, their smile disappears quickly, they lean away, right? And their response is significantly shorter than everything they said before. The words are positive. The rest of the communication is less clear, right? And that's what I call incongruency, okay? Don't accuse them. Don't say, well, hey, look, you're obviously uncomfortable. Say, hey, you said it sounds good, but I want to make sure I'm not missing anything right now. What's going through your mind? That's a completely different level of communication, right? You notice the mismatch and created space for the prospect to clarify it, okay? A sales combo should be a safe place. I don't like that word. That's too soft for me, but in reality, it is. That's what it is, okay? So module 5, learn to read the darn face. Look at this pretty thing, right? You got to learn how to read it. The face gives you a tremendous amount of information, but again, we're looking for changes, not pretending we're human lie detectors. So you got to pay attention for lip compression, jaw tightening, brow movement, sudden smiling, got a smile disappearing, right, squinting, changes around the eyes, brief expressions of surprise, changes in facial tension. Imagine you're discussing the amount of time the owner currently spends dealing with their books, right? You ask him, hey, how much of your week do you think is actually being consumed by this? Boom. They pause, their lips tighten, they look down. Then probably more than, I'd like to admit, they'll say. And don't race past that. Something happens, stay there. Well, what do you mean by that? Something more than you'd like to admit. Huh? That's where the body language awareness becomes a skill, right? You're using nonverbal information to decide to go when and where to go deeper. So module 6, okay? The hands and body can show state changes. The hands and body. Hey, hands are incredibly expressive. Some people naturally gesture constantly. Others barely move. Again, baseline first. Look for increases or decreases in movement, right? A prospect who has been gesturing throughout the conversation suddenly places both hands completely still. Well, that's interesting, right? Someone who has been relatively still suddenly starts tapping the fingers. Okay, that's interesting. Someone begins touching their face more frequently after a particular question. You know that weird itch people do, fixing the darn hair and all that stuff, right? It's all interesting. They reposition themselves, the shoulders tighten, they pull back, then suddenly become more animated. All of these can indicate a change in internal state, but I want you to tattoo this principle in your brain. A state change is not an explanation. You observe that something happened, you have not established why though, and that's what communication skills are for. Alright, let's go to module 7. Cat running around behind. You kidding me? Let's go to module 7. Hey, vocal body language. Body language isn't something you see. Isn't just something you see, right? You should also be listening for changes in the voice. This is especially important if you're selling over the phone. Hey, you gotta watch for the speaking pace, the volume, the pitch, breathing, pauses, response length, energy, hesitation, filler words, changes in certainty. Imagine your prospect has been answering questions immediately throughout the conversation. You ask, if you decide, hey Jenny, if you decide this was the right solution, who else would need to be involved in making that decision? Give them a pause. Probably just me. That pause is information. It doesn't prove they're lying. Don't make the mistake. But compared with their baseline response time, something changed. So investigate. Hey, you had to think about that for a second. Is there anyone else whose opinion you'd want before making the change? I noticed you took a second to answer that. Now you're responding to behavior instead of ignoring it. Got construction fixing the road over there, baby. That's what happens when you do good in sales. Make good money, live in places, got nice roads. You kidding me? That's what it's all about. Look, hey, module 8, okay? Response is a powerful signal. Let's go deeper into pauses because most salespeople are terrified of silence, right? If someone normally answers within 1 second, suddenly takes 5 seconds, something required additional processing. Okay, your job isn't to fill the silence, your job is to let them think. And salespeople destroy valuable moments because they get uncomfortable. The prospect pauses, salesperson jumps in, right? And obviously there's no pressure, and we can always, well, stop. What you did right there is you interrupted their cognition, okay? They're sitting over there letting things download. They're figuring it out. And that silence gives you information. Silence also gives the prospects room to formulate what they actually think and become comfortable waiting. That's what you got to get good at. Just become comfortable waiting. Sitting in the dark, sitting in the silence. You want to get good at sitting in silence, just put your phone away for 30 minutes and be in a room by yourself. Really just absorb your thoughts, and really in the sales conversations, just ask questions and let them talk. That's how you get good at it. Let's go to Module 9, identify the trigger. Now we connect behavior to the conversation, okay? You noticed a behavioral change. So ask, what happened immediately before? Was it price, timeline, commitment, their provider, their business partner, right? This is called identifying the trigger. Let's say the prospect has been relaxed, okay? What would happen if nothing changed over the next 12 months? They suddenly stopped smiling, okay? Long pause. Honestly, I don't know. Well, that's important. The question triggered a state change. Don't immediately move on. Hey, you got quiet when I asked that. What were you thinking about? Notice the wording. You're describing something observable. You got quiet. You're not saying you're scared. That's interpretation. One is observable. The other is your assumption, right? Great communicators know the difference. Let's go to Module 10. Verify your read. Okay? Verify your read. This may be the most important module, okay, in the entire lesson. Never become so confident in your ability to read people that you stop asking them. Body language to generate questions, not conclusions, right? Use what you observe as a hypothesis, then test it. You can say, okay, you pause there, what are you thinking? Or I noticed your reaction changed when we started talking about that. What came up for you? Or it seems like there's something you're weighing. Am I reading that correctly? Or simply tell them what's going through your mind. This prevents one of the most dangerous problems in sales, which is projection. Okay, I don't want projection. So you think they're worried about money because they're worried about money. Right? You think they're losing interest because you're afraid of losing the sale. You think they're objecting because you're expecting an objection. You can't project. Observe, hypothesize, and verify. So look, I hope this video was helpful. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.